Beverly, 90 years young, had played golf every single day since her retirement 25 years ago. But one evening, she returned home looking unusually downcast. "That's it," she told her husband, Gus. "I'm giving up golf. My eyesight has gotten so bad that once I hit the ball, I can't see where it goes." Gus, who was a remarkable 103-year-old, made her a comforting cup of tea and said, "Why don't you take me along and give it one more try?" Beverly sighed. "That's no good," she replied. "You're 103. What help could you possibly be?" Gus straightened up proudly and said, "I may be 103, but my eyesight is perfect." The next day, Beverly reluctantly took Gus to the golf course. She teed up, took a powerful swing, and squinted down the fairway. Turning to Gus, she asked, "Did you see the ball?" "Of course I did," Gus replied confidently. "I told you, my eyesight is perfect." "Great," said Beverly, feeling a surge of hope. "So where did it go?" Gus paused for a moment, then scratched his head. "I don't remember." An Amish lady is trotting down the road in her horse and buggy when she is pulled over by a cop. "Ma'am, I'm not going to ticket you, but I do have to issue you a warning. You have a broken reflector on your buggy." "Oh, I'll let my husband Jacob know as soon as I get home." "That's fine. Another thing, ma'am. I don't like the way that one rein loops across the horse's back and around one of his balls. I consider that animal abuse. That's cruelty to animals. Have your husband take care of that right away." Later that day, the lady is home telling her husband about her encounter with the cop. "Well, dear, what exactly did he say?" "He said the reflector is broken." "I can fix that in 2 minutes. What else?" "I'm not sure, Jacob. Something about the emergency brake." 3 kids are arguing about whose dad is the fastest. At lunch, the first boy says, "My dad is the fastest because he is a bricklayer, and when he drops a brick from the 5th floor, he can run to the ground level and be there before the brick hits." "Not bad," says the second boy, "but my dad is faster. He is a professional archer. When he shoots an arrow at the bullseye, he can reach it before the arrow does." "That's pretty fast," says the third boy, "but not as fast as my old man." "My dad works for the government as a public servant, and when he finishes work at 5 p.m., he can get home by 2:30 p.m. In court, the lawyer leaned forward, visibly confused. "So, what exactly happened when you filed for divorce the day after your wedding night? Surely this can't be serious." The husband shook his head in frustration. "Well, I went into the bedroom, feeling excited and romantic. I looked at her and said, 'Take off your bra.' She looked at me, dead serious, and said, 'Take it off yourself.'" The lawyer, still confused, asked, "And that's why you're divorcing her? Seems a little extreme." The husband groaned. "No, you don't get it. I spent half an hour trying to take it off. I gave up at the end. If that's how complicated the start is, I don't want to see what's next." One evening, a husband, thinking he was being clever, turned to his wife and said, "Maybe we should start washing your clothes in Slim Fast. It might help take a few inches off your butt." His wife, clearly unimpressed, decided she couldn't let a comment like that slide without a little payback. The next morning, as the husband grabbed a pair of underwear from his drawer, he noticed a strange cloud of dust puffing out when he gave them a shake. "What the heck is this?" he muttered, baffled. Calling out toward the bathroom, he yelled, "April, why on earth did you put talcum powder in my underwear?" With a mischievous laugh, she replied, Oh, that's not talcum powder, it's Miracle-Gro. Two medical students were strolling down the street when they noticed an old man walking with his legs wide apart, moving stiffly and slowly. The first student nudged his friend and said, "That poor man must have Peltry syndrome. People with that condition walk exactly like that." The second student shook his head and replied, "No, I think it's Zovitsky syndrome. His slow, wide-legged gait is a classic symptom, just like we learned in class." Unable to agree, they decided to approach the old man to settle the matter. "Excuse us, sir," one student said politely. "We're medical students and we couldn't help but notice your unusual walk. We were debating which syndrome might explain it. Could you tell us what you have?" The old man smiled and said, "I'll tell you, but first, why don't you share your thoughts?" The first student confidently declared, "I think it's Peltry syndrome." The old man chuckled and replied, "You thought, but you're wrong." The second student then offered, "In that case, I believe it's Zovitsky syndrome." The old man laughed and said, "You thought, but you're wrong too." Curious, the students asked, "All right then, sir, what do you have?" The old man grinned and said, "Well, I thought it was just gas. But I was wrong too." A husband noticed his blonde wife sulking for a few days and finally asked, "Honey, you've been acting upset lately. What's wrong?" She crossed her arms and replied, "That folder on your computer named My Documents. You couldn't rename it to Our Documents. You clearly don't care about me anymore." One evening, as a man strolled down the street, a ragged homeless man approached him, asking for a few dollars to buy dinner. The man reached for his wallet, pulled out a $10 bill and paused. "If I give you this money, will you spend it on beer instead of food?" he asked. The homeless man shook his head earnestly. "No, sir. I gave up drinking years ago." "Will you gamble it away instead of buying food?" the man pressed. "Not a chance," the homeless man replied. "I can't afford to waste money like that." The man smirked. "How about greens fees at a golf course?" The homeless man laughed, shaking his head. "Golf? I haven't played that in decades." "What about spending it on women instead of food?" the man asked, raising an eyebrow. "For $10? The homeless man quipped, "I wouldn't even know where to start with that." The man chuckled and put the $10 back into his wallet. "Well then," he said, "I won't give you the money. Instead, I'm inviting you to my house for a warm, home-cooked meal." The homeless man was stunned. "Are you sure? Won't your wife be upset? I'm filthy and I probably don't smell great." With a sly smile, the man replied, "Oh, she'll be fine. In fact, I want her to see exactly what happens to a man when he gives up beer, gambling, golf, and women." A young couple invited their elderly pastor over for Sunday dinner. While the couple was busy in the kitchen preparing the meal, the pastor struck up a conversation with their young son. "What are we having for dinner?" the pastor asked curiously. "Goat," the boy replied confidently. "Goat?" said the startled pastor. "Are you sure about that?" "Yep," the boy nodded. "On the way home from church, I heard Mom say to Dad, 'Don't forget we're having the old goat for dinner tonight.'" After Brian proposed to Jill, his father pulled him aside. "Son, when I first married your mother, the first thing I did when we got home was take off my pants. I handed them to your mother and told her to try them on. They were far too big for her, and she said she couldn't wear them because they didn't fit. I told her, 'Of course, they're too big for you.' I wear the pants in this family, and I always will. Since that day, son, we've never had a problem. Brian took his father's advice to heart and did the same thing on his wedding night. He handed Jill his pants, but Jill, with a smirk, took off her pants and handed them to Brian. "Try these on," she said. Brian, confused, tried them on, but they were far too small. "What's the point of this?" he asked. "I can't even fit into your pants." Jill smiled. "Exactly. And if you don't change your attitude, you never will." Late at night, a man rushes into a pub and urgently asks the bartender for a glass of water. He drinks it in one gulp, then asks for another. After 6 glasses, he finally catches his breath. "Wow, that's quite a thirst you've got," the bartender says. The man sighs. "Any guy would be this thirsty after what I just went through. I was with a woman in my car, and she's absolutely insatiable. She wants me to go back out there and do it all over again, but I just don't have the energy." The bartender chuckles. "Where's your car?" "Right outside the bar," the man replies. "Tell you what," the bartender grins. "I'll watch the bar while you rest, and I'll go keep her company for you." "Be my guest," the man says. So the bartender steps outside and gets into the car. It's completely dark, and the woman doesn't seem to notice the switch. Without missing a beat, they get right to it. A few minutes later, there's a knock on the window. A police officer shines a flashlight on them. "What's going on here?" the officer asks. The bartender, thinking fast, says, "It's okay, officer. She's my wife." The officer, embarrassed, apologizes. "Oh, sorry, sir. I didn't realize." The bartender looks over at the woman and mutters, "Neither did I until you turned on that light." Man asks his wife, "If I die, would you consider getting married again?" The wife shot back rather quickly. "Sure." The man digs. "Well, would you let him live in this house?" "Well, sure. I love this house." Feeling more upset, he continues, asking, "Would you let him use my golf clubs?" "Oh no, never." He gets some comfort, until she says, "He's left-handed." I was home on leave from the US Navy, sitting in my mom's kitchen with my 13-year-old sister. Sis was doing homework and asked who won the Civil War. I was kinda surprised and said some smart remark and tried some history to make her realize who won. She knew none of it. Finally, my mom said, "Well, I don't know either." I was floored. I finally said, "Well, we're not whistling Dixie." That didn't sit well with Mom, who said, "Just tell us the answer." So I told him and went back to reading the paper. An old man and his wife of 60 years are sitting on their rocking chairs on their porch of many years. The wife gets up from her chair and smacks her husband hard in the face to where he falls out of his chair. As the old man gets up and gets back into his chair, the wife sits back into hers. He asks, "What the was that for?" She states, "For 60 years of terrible." The old man sits and thinks for a bit, gets up and slaps his wife hard enough for her to fall out of her chair. And he sits down as she gets back up into her chair. She asks, "What the was that for?" He states, "For knowing the difference." An 80-year-old Saskatchewan farmer goes to the clinic in Saskatoon for a checkup. The doctor is amazed at what good shape the guy is in and asks, "How do you stay in such great physical condition?" "I'm from Sask, and in my spare time I like to hunt and fish," says the old guy. "And that's why I'm in such good shape. I'm up well before daylight in the field, ploughing and mending fences, and when I'm not doing that, I'm out hunting or fishing." Well, says the doctor, I'm sure that helps, but there's got to be more to it. How old was your father when he died? Who said my father's dead? The doctor is amazed. You mean you're 80 years old and your father's still alive? How old is he? He's 100 years old, says the old Sask boy. In fact, he worked with and hunted with me this morning, and he's still alive. He's a Saskatchewan farmer, and he's a hunter and fisherman too. Well, the doctor says, that's great, but I'm sure there's more to it than that. How about your father's father? How old was he when he died? Who said my grandpa's dead? Stunned, the doctor asks, You mean you're 80 years old and your grandfather's still alive? He's 118 years old, says the man. The doctor is getting frustrated at this point. So I guess he went hunting with you this morning too? No, Grandpa couldn't go this morning because he's getting married today. At this point, the doctor is close to losing it. Getting married? Why would a 118-year-old guy want to get married? Who said he wanted to? A lawyer meets with the family of a recently deceased millionaire for the reading of the will. To my loving wife, Rose, who always stood by me, I leave the house and $2 million, the attorney reads. To my darling daughter, Jessica, who looked after me in sickness and kept the business going, I leave the yacht, the business, and $1 million. And finally, the lawyer concludes, to my cousin Dan, who hated me, argued with me, and thought I would never mention him in my will. Well, you were wrong. Hi, Dan. Two guys were doing construction on a house. One of them, who was nailing down siding, would reach into his nail pouch, pull out a nail, and then either toss it over his shoulder or nail it into the siding. The other guy, figuring this was worth looking into, asked, Why are you throwing those nails away? The first guy explained, If I pull a nail out of my pouch and it's pointed towards me, I throw it away 'cause it's defective. If it's pointed towards the house, then I nail it into the siding. The second guy was outraged. He yelled, You moron! The nails pointed towards you aren't defective. They're for the other side of the house. A young man at this construction site was bragging that he could outdo anyone based on his strength. He especially made fun of one of the older workmen. After several minutes, the older worker had enough. Why don't you put your money where your mouth is, he said. I'll bet a week's wages that I can haul something in a wheelbarrow over to the other building that you won't be able to wheel back. You're on, old man, the young man replied. Let's see what you've got. The old man reached out and grabbed the wheelbarrow by the handles. Then, nodding to the young man, he said with a smile, All right, get in. A wife went to the police station with her neighbor to report her husband missing. The officer asked for a description. She replied, He's 35 years old, 6 feet 4 inches tall, with dark eyes and wavy hair. He has an athletic build, weighs 185 pounds, is soft-spoken, and treats the kids well. The neighbor interjected, But your husband is only 5 feet 4, chubby, bald, has a loud mouth, and is often unkind to your children. The wife shrugged and said, True, but who would want him back? A teacher is explaining biology to her 4th grade students. Human beings are the only animals that stutter, she says. A little girl raises her hand. I had a kitty cat who stuttered. She volunteered. The teacher, knowing how precious some of these stories could become, asked the girl to describe the incident. "Well," she began, "I was in the backyard with my kitty, and the Rottweiler that lives next door got a run start, and before we knew it, he jumped over the fence into our yard. That must have been scary," said the teacher. "It sure was," said the little girl. "My kitty raised his back, went and before he could say the Rottweiler ate him. The teacher wet her pants laughing." 3 little pigs went out to dinner one night. The waiter came and took their drink order. "I would like a Sprite," said the first little piggy. "I would like a Coke," said the second little piggy. "I want beer, lots and lots of beer," said the third little piggy. The drinks were brought out, and the waiter took their orders for dinner. "I want a nice big steak," said the first piggy. "I would like the salad plate," said the second piggy. "I want beer, lots and lots of beer," said the third little piggy. The meals were brought out, and a while later, the waiter approached the table and asked if the piggies would like any dessert. "I want a banana split," said the first piggy. "I want a cheesecake," said the second piggy. "I want beer, lots and lots of beer," exclaimed the third little piggy. "Pardon me for asking," said the waiter to the third little piggy, "but why have you only ordered beer all evening?" The third piggy says, "Well, somebody has to go, wee, all the way home." This lady found out her dog could hardly hear, so she took it to the veterinarian. He found that the problem was hair in its ears. He cleaned both ears and the dog could hear fine. The vet then proceeded to tell the lady that if she wanted to keep this from recurring, she should go to the store and get some nigh-ear hair remover and rub it in the dog's ears once a month. The lady goes to the drugstore and gets some nigh-ear hair remover. At the register, the druggist tells her, "If you're going to use this under your arms, don't use deodorant for a few days." The lady says, "I'm not using it under my arms." The druggist says, "If you're using it on your legs, don't shave for a couple of days." The lady says, "I'm not using it on my legs either. If you must know, I'm using it on my schnauzer." The druggist says, "Stay off your bicycle for at least a week." A guy walks into a pharmacy and says, "Listen, I've got a big weekend coming up. 2 amazing girls are coming over, and I need something to keep me energized all night. It's going to be a wild time." The pharmacist nods, heads to the back, and returns with an old, dusty bottle. "This stuff is powerful. Just take 1 ounce and I guarantee you'll have all the energy you need. But be careful, it's strong. Let me know how it goes." Monday morning rolls around, and the same guy is waiting at the pharmacy door. The pharmacist is surprised. "Wow, you're here early. How was your weekend?" The guy groans. "Quick, I need some muscle pain relief, like blue ice." The pharmacist chuckles knowingly. "I wouldn't recommend putting that anywhere sensitive." The guy shakes his head. No, it's for my arm." The pharmacist looks confused. "Your arm? What happened?" The guy sighs. "Well, I drank the whole bottle." The pharmacist's eyes widen. "Oh no, and then what?" The guy shrugs. "The girls never showed up." A psychiatrist was conducting a group therapy session with 4 young mothers and their small children. "You all have obsessions," he observed. To the first mother, Mary, he said, "You are obsessed with eating. You've even named your daughter Candy." He turned to the second mom, Anne. "Your obsession is with money. Again, it manifests itself in your child's name, Penny." He turned to the third mom, Joyce. "Your obsession is alcohol. This too shows itself in your child's name, Brandy." At this point, the fourth mother, Kathy, quietly got up, took her little boy by the hand and whispered, "Come on, we're leaving." A teacher asked her young students to get their parents to tell them a story with a moral at the end of it. The next day, the kids came back and one by one began to tell their stories. There were all the regular type of stuff, but then the teacher realized that only Janie was left. "Janie, do you have a story to share?" "Yes, madam. My daddy told me a story about my mom." "Okay, let's hear," said the teacher. "My mom was a marine pilot in Operation Desert Storm in Iraq, and her plane got hit. She had to bail out over enemy territory, and all she had was a flask of whiskey, a pistol, and a survival knife. She drank the whiskey on the way down so the bottle wouldn't break, and then her parachute landed her right in the middle of 20 Iraqi troops. She shot 15 of them with the pistol until she ran out of bullets, killed 4 more with the knife till the blade broke, and then she killed the last Iraqi with her bare hands." Pin drop silence in the class. "Good heavens," said the horrified teacher. "What did your daddy tell you was the moral to this horrible story?" "Stay away from Mummy when she's drunk." In a Chicago hospital, a gentleman found himself repeatedly frustrated as he tried to use the men's restroom. It was always occupied. A nurse, noticing his predicament, approached him. "Sir," she said, "you're welcome to use the ladies' restroom, but please don't press any of the buttons on the wall." He agreed and entered the restroom. As he sat down, he couldn't help but notice the intriguing buttons labeled WW, Washington, PP, and a red one marked ATR. Curiosity got the better of him. Who would know if he tried them? He pressed the WW button, and warm water gently sprayed over him. What a pleasant surprise, he thought. Men's restrooms never had anything like this. Eager to explore further, he pressed the WA button. A soothing stream of warm air replaced the water, delicately drying him. With each button, his excitement grew. He pressed PP, and a powder puff brushed against him, leaving behind a faint scent of spring flowers. He was thoroughly impressed. This restroom was like a spa. Finally, he couldn't resist the red ATR button. Surely, it would be the ultimate in relaxation. But as he pressed it, everything went black. He awoke in a hospital bed, a nurse standing over him. Confused, he asked, "What happened? I remember pushing the ATR button." The nurse replied, "ATR stands for Automatic Remover. And by the way, sir, your anatomy is now under your pillow." "Men never listen," she muttered as she walked away. A pastor, a priest, and a rabbi walk into a bar. The bartender nods toward a sign that reads, "No jokes allowed," and tells them to hit the road. They exchange glances, shrug, and leave. The next day, a horse trots in. The bartender points to the sign, and with a sigh, the horse clops away. On the third day, a chicken strolls in. The bartender gestures to the sign again and says, "Sorry, no jokes here." The chicken, frustrated, squawks, "All right, but where can I get a drink?" The bartender replies, "Try the place across the road." A doctor who claimed to have a repertoire of funny jokes and miraculous cures for arthritis had a waiting room full of people eagerly anticipating their turn for some laughter and other relief. Among them was a little old lady, completely bent over, shuffling in slowly and relying on her trusty old cane. After patiently waiting, her turn had finally arrived, and she gingerly entered the doctor's office. To everyone's amazement, within just half an hour, the little old lady came out from the office, no longer bent over, but walking completely erect and straight with her head held high. Her transformation was nothing short of miracle. Overflowing with enthusiasm, her daughter, who had accompanied her to her appointment at the doctor's office, couldn't help but smile. With excitement, she said, "Mom, You went from walking bent over to now standing tall. Whatever that doctor did was nothing short of a miracle." With a mischievous twinkle in her eye, the mother responded, "Miracle, schmiracle, you won't believe it, dear. He simply gave me a longer cane. Surprisingly, a simple switch of props was all that was needed."